What if I told you that one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel has been found? Right now, at this very moment, something extraordinary is happening in northeastern India that's sending shockwaves through the archaeological and theological world. The Bnei Menashe community, a group of over 10,000 people living in remote villages along the Myanmar-India border, are claiming something that sounds absolutely impossible. They say they are direct descendants of the biblical tribe of Manasseh, one of the 10 lost tribes that vanished from history 2,700 years ago. And here's what makes this even more incredible. After nearly 3 millennia of exile, scattered across continents and hidden in the mountains of Asia, they're finally returning home to Israel. Thousands have already made the journey. Thousands more are desperately waiting for rescue. But here's what will shock you most. This isn't just some far-fetched claim or wishful thinking. In 2005, Israel's chief rabbi officially recognized them as genuine descendants of the lost tribe. DNA studies are backing up their story. Their ancient customs and traditions, preserved for over 2,000 years without any contact with other Jewish communities, are so remarkably similar to biblical Judaism that scholars are calling it miraculous. And if that wasn't mind-blowing enough, consider this. Their return to Israel is happening right now in our lifetime, exactly as the end times prophecy predicted. We're not talking about ancient history here, we're talking about biblical prophecy unfolding before our very eyes. This isn't just about history, it's about prophecy manifesting in real time. Could we be witnessing the literal fulfillment of end time scripture? Could this be one of the clearest signs that we're living in the last days? Stay with me because what you're about to discover will change how you view both biblical prophecy and the times we're living in. The story of the Bnei Menashe isn't just remarkable, it's prophetic. And it's happening right now. To understand why this discovery is so earth-shattering, we need to go back to the beginning. The nation of Israel originally consisted of 12 tribes, descended from the 12 sons of Jacob. These weren't just family groups. They were entire nations, each with their own territory, their own inheritance, their own destiny in God's plan. But in 722 BC, everything changed. The mighty Assyrian Empire swept down like a flood, conquering the northern kingdom of Israel and carrying away 10 of these tribes into exile. They were scattered across the known world, dispersed among the nations, and then, they simply vanished from recorded history. For over 2,700 years, their fate remained one of history's greatest mysteries. Now, the tribe of Manasseh holds special significance in biblical prophecy. Manasseh was one of Joseph's sons, blessed directly by Jacob himself. In his dying blessing, Jacob declared that Manasseh would become a great person. But more than that, Manasseh is specifically mentioned in the book of Revelation as one of the tribes from which the 144,000 servants of God will be sealed in the last days. For centuries, only the tribes of Judah and Benjamin remained visible to the world, forming what we know today as the Jewish people, Ashkenazi Jews from Europe, Sephardic Jews from Spain and North Africa, and Mizrahi Jews from the Middle East. But the other 10 tribes? They seem to have disappeared completely, leading to endless speculation and theories about their whereabouts. Some scholars suggested they had been completely assimilated into other cultures. Others believed they had maintained their identity but were simply hidden in remote corners of the world. Still others connected their return to end times prophecy, pointing to verses that speak of God gathering his people from the four corners of the earth. But what happened to those lost tribes? Did they simply vanish from history, absorbed into the civilizations that conquered them? Or have they been hiding in plain sight, maintaining their identity and their faith across millennia, waiting for the appointed time to reveal themselves? What we've discovered about the Bnei Menashe suggests the answer is far more incredible than anyone imagined. The story of the Bnei Menashe reads like something out of an epic novel, but every word is documented history. Picture this. After the Assyrian conquest, their ancestors began an incredible journey that would span continents and centuries. Historical records and oral traditions tell us they were first exiled to the regions around modern-day Iran and Afghanistan. But their journey didn't end there. Over the following centuries they migrated eastward through Central Asia, eventually crossing into China, then moving through Tibet and into Myanmar. Finally, they settled in the remote mountainous regions along the Myanmar-India border, in the states of Manipur and Mizoram. For over 2,000 years, they lived in complete isolation from the rest of the Jewish world. Here's what makes their story absolutely mind-boggling. Despite being cut off from all Jewish contact for 2 millennia, they maintain traditions that are remarkably similar to ancient biblical Judaism. They observed a weekly Sabbath, resting on the 7th day. They celebrated festivals that mirror the biblical Passover, complete with the sacrifice of animals and the eating of unleavened bread. They practiced ritual purity laws that echo the Levitical codes. They even maintained prayers for the restoration to Zion, prayers for a homeland they had never seen but somehow remembered. For centuries, they maintained these practices without any contact with other Jewish communities. But how is that even possible? How does a people preserve such specific religious practices across thousands of miles and thousands of years without any outside reinforcement? What they discovered next will give you chills. In 1951, a tribal leader named Chela had a prophetic dream. In this dream, he saw a vision of the Jewish homeland being restored and his people returning to their ancestral land. But remember, this was 1951, just 3 years after Israel's modern establishment. How could a man living in complete isolation in the mountains of India have such a vision? When Christian missionaries first brought Bibles to their region in the 1950s and they read the Hebrew scriptures in their own language, they were stunned. The stories, the customs, the religious practices they had maintained for generations were all there in black and white. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. Their tribal name Manasseh was virtually identical to the biblical Manasseh. This wasn't a coincidence. This was providence. Here's where this story takes a turn that will make your jaw drop. What started as oral tradition and religious practice was about to be validated by the highest Jewish authorities in the world. In 2005, after years of investigation and study, Israel's Sephardic chief Rabbi Shlomo Amar made an unprecedented declaration. He officially recognized the Bnei Menashe as genuine descendants of the lost tribe of Manasseh. This wasn't just a religious opinion, it was an official pronouncement that opened the doors for thousands of people to make Aliyah, the sacred journey home to Israel. Since that recognition, over 4,000 Bnei Menashe have already immigrated to Israel, with many more in the process. But the validation didn't stop with religious authority. DNA studies conducted by researchers have found genetic markers consistent with Middle Eastern Jewish populations among the Bnei Menashe. Linguistic analysis has revealed Hebrew and Aramaic influences in their ancient songs and prayers. Even more remarkably, the surname Manasseh, a clear derivative of Manasseh, has appeared among Israeli communities who have traced their lineage back to these regions. Let me share just one personal story that captures the profound emotion of this return. Sarah Manasseh, a 78-year-old grandmother from Manipur, had dreamed her entire life of seeing Jerusalem. When she finally stepped off the plane at Ben Gurion Airport, she fell to her knees and kissed the ground, tears streaming down her face. "I never thought this day would come," she said. "But God remembered His promise to our fathers. Families separated for generations are being reunited. Children who grew up hearing stories of their ancient homeland are now walking the streets of Jerusalem. It's a restoration that's both deeply personal and profoundly prophetic. But their story isn't over. In fact, it's reached a critical juncture that demands immediate attention. In 2023, devastating ethnic violence erupted in Manipur state, specifically targeting the Bnei Menashe community. Synagogues have been destroyed. Homes have been burned. Lives have been lost. Right now, at this very moment, approximately 6,500 Bnei Menashe are living in refugee camps, desperately awaiting rescue and safe passage to Israel. Their ancient journey of exile may be nearing its end, but their final chapter requires urgent intervention. But here's what makes this absolutely mind-blowing. What we're witnessing with the Bnei Menashe isn't just a remarkable historical discovery, it's the literal fulfillment of biblical prophecy happening in real time. And when you understand the prophetic significance, it will completely change how you view the times we're living in. Let's start with Ezekiel 36 verse 24, where God declares through the prophet, I will take you from the nations, gather you from all countries, and bring you to your own land. Now, many scholars have interpreted this as referring to the return from Babylonian exile. But look at the specific language here. This isn't just about returning from one nation. This is about gathering from all countries, and from the nations, plural. This is a global, end-times gathering. Notice who's doing the action. I will take. I will gather. I will bring it. This isn't human initiative. This is divine intervention. God Himself is orchestrating this return, and He's doing it in our generation. But it gets even more prophetic. Romans 11 verses 25 to 27 speaks of a mystery, that Israel has experienced a partial hardening until the fullness of the Gentiles comes in, and then all Israel will be saved. This isn't just talking about individuals accepting the Messiah. This is describing a national awakening, a collective recognition of Jesus as Messiah that coincides with the end-times gathering of the tribes. Could the return of the lost tribes be part of preparing Israel for this prophetic awakening? And then there's the connection to Revelation's 144,000 sealed servants from the 12 tribes of Israel. Notice that Manasseh is specifically mentioned among these end-times witnesses. For centuries, people wondered how this could be fulfilled when most of the tribes were lost. But what if they weren't really lost? What if God was preserving them in hidden places around the world for this very purpose? The Bnei Menashe aren't the only lost tribe making headlines. The Beta Israel from Ethiopia have been returning to Israel since the 1980s. Jewish communities are awakening to their heritage in China, Afghanistan, and Nigeria. Indigenous groups across multiple continents are discovering Jewish ancestry and returning to their roots. Isaiah prophesied that God would gather the outcasts of Israel from the four corners of the earth. We're not just reading about this prophecy anymore, we're watching it unfold on the evening news. This is prophetic acceleration at its finest. So what does this mean for us today? What does this mean for you? Let me share 3 key takeaways that should transform how you view both biblical prophecy and your own spiritual life. First, God's faithfulness is absolute. For 2,700 years, the world thought these tribes were gone forever. Scholars wrote them off. History forgot them. But God never did. He preserved them through conquests, migrations, famines, and persecution. He maintained their identity across millennia and continents. If God is this faithful to fulfill ancient promises to physical Israel, how much more faithful is He to His spiritual promises to you? Every promise in His Word will be fulfilled, including the ones He's made to you personally. Second, we may be living in the prophetic times Scripture foretold. The return of the lost tribes, the restoration of Israel, the global awakening of Jewish identity, these aren't random historical events. They're signs that we're approaching the culmination of God's prophetic timeline. The stage is being set for end-times events that have been written about for thousands of years. Third, this reality should impact how you live today. Are you watching for signs of God's end-times plan? Are you studying prophecy with fresh eyes? Are you spiritually prepared for what's coming? The bigger picture is staggering. Beta Israel from Ethiopia, the Bnei Menashe from India, emerging Jewish communities from China, Afghanistan, and Nigeria. It's as if God is awakening Jewish identity around the globe simultaneously. Isaiah's prophecy about gathering the outcasts from the four corners of the earth isn't ancient poetry anymore, it's current events. But this also means time may be shorter than we think. If God is accelerating the fulfillment of end-times prophecy at this pace, what does that say about Christ's return? Here's my challenge for you: study end-times prophecy with new urgency. Pray for Jewish communities still at risk around the world. Watch for signs of prophetic fulfillment in current events. Most importantly, examine your own spiritual readiness. The return of the lost tribes isn't just ancient history being corrected, it's front-page news in heaven's newspaper. The question is, are you paying attention to what God is doing in our generation? If this message stirred something in your spirit, join me in prayer for the remaining Bnei Menashe community still awaiting rescue, and for wisdom to understand the extraordinary times we're living in.